Very good, friends. Doc South here, and I got a tale from my collection of written blurbs, and I thought you might like this. I don't think forgive me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I've read this one to you. So I thought it would be fun. It's kind of we're a chilly day in October, and I thought a tale of my boiler making days might just, to quote Lum and Abner, might warm the crockery of your heart. Right. The generally Boilermakers, either it was when I did that kind of work again about 40 years ago, you were either very hot or very cold. You'd be cold if the boiler was broken and it was winter and you were in the frozen boiler room trying to get the thing to work again, or it would be hot if you were just down to make adjustments and the boilers were on, especially if they were going full blast. Yeah, oh my gosh. So, I mean, yeah, it'd be kind of funny to go to the hospital in January because you got heat exhaustion from being up in the upper reaches of the boiler room. But yeah, and of course we're always knocking our heads and getting burnt with the cutting torches and stuff, getting our fingers caught where they shouldn't be, and that kind of thing. So it was usually when you woke up in the morning, you hit the alarm and you wondered when the pain would start. And other times, though, doggone if it wasn't fun. And a case in point is this story here, called One Day at the Nursing Home. Again, from about 40 years ago, and I swear this is a true story. Okay, absolutely true. One day at the nursing home. I came up out of the nursing home's boiler room covered in rust, dust, and oil soot. The dark-lensed cutting goggles and my arm-length cutting torch gloves just made me even more of a sight for sore eyes. Actually, I think I'd just make sore eyes hurt even worse. The seniors were having a ball staring at me as I looked for the hole we drilled through the floor in the lobby. The hole was for the new iron return water pipe we were installing to take condensate back to the boiler room from the radiators. Condensate is for those of you who don't know, condensate is real hot water that was just recently steam. It had run through the radiator, and now it was instead of steam, it was water again. It gave its heat to the room, in this case, the nursing home's lobby. Now, back in liquid form, it needed a way to get back to the boiler to be made into steam again. The old return pipe had rusted out, and part of the new one was in my hand. I was up there to test it, see if it would fit. I found the hole in the floor. I got down on my knees and hollered through it to my coworker Jackson down in the boiler room. I could smell the boiler room air coming out of the hole. It was hot and smelled like fuel oil and steam. I could hear Jackson down there cussing. He had just hit his head on a low-hanging steam pipe. He'd get over it soon enough. I hollered to see if he was all right. He cussed back that he was seeing stars. He wanted to sit down and have a smoke and, well, maybe some coffee. Coffee, by the way, is the Boilermaker's idea of aspirin. It cures all and will hold an injured Boilermaker's pain in check until he can get to a beer garden at quitting time. The nurses were, well, I'll tell you the truth, they were kind of pretty there in the lobby, and so I hollered down the hole in the floor, telling Jackson to let me know when he was feeling better. Jackson liked to sip his coffee, so, well, this was going to take a bit. This was a very nice care center we were in, so I decided to stretch my legs and look around the lobby. They had great paintings on the wall. Some of the old-timers were reading or playing cards, or, well, maybe some checkers. Some folks were sound asleep in wheelchairs. Some residents were going here and there using walkers to get around. Nurses were handing out pills. One nurse asked me tongue-in-cheek if I needed a tablet or two. I said no, but my partner down in the boiler room might want an aspirin because he just hit his head. She said she'd get him one if he really needed it. I told her that he was taking a break and drinking his coffee, and she said, well, the coffee probably would help. And she asked if Jackson was bleeding. I said how I figured he probably was, but not bad enough to worry about it. I looked down the hole in the floor. I looked down the hole in the floor and told her that he was. I could see he was sitting down and having a smoke. She said if he starts screaming or goes unconscious to let her know, and well, then she went on her rounds. So I went back to people watching and noticed this lovely older lady pacing back and forth just inside the locked front door. She had to be at least 85 years old, but you wouldn't know it to look at her. She was wearing a party dress. I'm not sure what to call the dress style, but it looked to be something you'd probably wear to a square dance. It had a lot of ruffles and all sorts of bright colors in it, reds and blues, and her sleeves had those shoulder ruffles like Snow White wore all the time. Okay. In fact, yeah, basically she was dressed like Snow White. You get right down to it. The prettiest thing on her, though, was her big smile. She couldn't have been happier. I seem to remember that she was singing a happy song to herself in a low voice. Every so often she'd cast a glance out the lobby door. She must have been waiting for someone, and she was excited as could be. The pretty nurse with all the pills walked by me asking if a gray-haired old guy just walked by. I said, well, gosh, that could be just about anyone in this place. She said this guy would have been a little more conspicuous because he wasn't wearing anything. I said how that might be my helper, Jackson. Last I knew he had his clothes on, but he can get a little loony when he hits his head. She said that, if she didn't find the resident real soon, she'd check the boiler room and see if maybe it was him, but, well, yeah. Anyway, before the nurse could head off, I asked her about that happy lady at the front door. She told me that that the lady's name was Mabel, and she was going out to lunch with her family. She told me that Mabel was 84 years old and her family came every Friday to take her out to eat at the pancake house down the street. I mentioned how that was darn nice of the kids to come by and do that with her. So many kids just put old folks in the homes and forget them. Well, the nurse looked at me. She had me hooked like a trout. She forgot about the naked guy for a moment and smiled as she asked me what made me think it was the lady's kids who came by. I was taken aback a little and then said how well it was good of her brothers and sisters to come by and be so nice, especially with her at such an advanced age. The nurse shook her head from side to side and smiled. Finally, she let me in on the secret. The lady was waiting for her folks to show up. Yes, her mom and dad. The look came over my face that made the nurse say how she had to tell me that she wasn't lying. She said how not one bit of what she told me was a fib. Just then she pointed and said how the party girl's folks had just arrived. I turned to look, and sure as heck, there they were, standing just outside the door, was two very aged and gray old-timers. They were old for sure, darned old, but only in looks alone. Other than that, they could have been a young mom and dad picking up their little girl at school. At nursery school, for crying out loud. The dad walked with a snappy step and wore a bright checkered vest and a straw hat. Mom dressed much like her daughter and carried a red purse, a bright red purse. They had to be a bit over 100, the two of them, and must have started their family early, like many did back in the old days. There were hugs around, and then Father snapped his fingers, pointing at the car, saying how he was looking forward to that big pile of flapjacks. So out they went. They hopped into the car and drove off. Dad even chirped the tires a little bit. Yes, he did. The nurse asked if I needed any help getting my jaw off the floor. I could hear Jackson hollering through the hole in the floor down there in the basement, and he wanted to know what the heck where that darn pipe was. He mentioned something about how I should quit my darn goofing off and get back to work. You know, that day was about 40 years ago. That nurse, well, she'd be in her 80s by now. Jackson, if he was still alive, gosh, he'd be 90 at least, maybe 110. He lived hard and fast, so no, Jackson's probably drinking beer and having a smoke with St. Peter and all his old shipmates from the Navy. Me, I'm getting up there too now, and the aches and pains are taking their toll. But I'll just bet that family is still getting together to eat pancakes once a week. I guess pancakes with your family is, well, it's kind of health food, isn't it? I can hear them now asking to pass the syrup and wondering if they could maybe get more bacon. Yep. There you go, friends. An absolutely true story. I hope you enjoyed it. Okay. Yep. We'll see you later. And thank you. And God bless. Let me just get this thing here and we'll do another one for you real soon.